Hello and welcome to the Beach House 34 podcast. I'm your host, Christine Worth. Welcome new subscribers to the Beach House 34 family. And thank you to all of our dedicated listeners. Thank you so much for being an important part of Beach House 34. Before we get started, this episode is a continuing series on the trial readings for the Darlie Routier case. A mother who, in 1996, was accused and convicted of murdering her two children in Rowlett, Texas, and who currently sits on death row. As soon as these trial readings are done, I'll be back to doing weekly true crime cases. In the last episode, we heard the second part of Detective Patterson's testimony. And he, at the end of his second part of the testimony, he was not excused as being a witness, but the defense wanted to ask him questions about the recording at the grave site, the microphone that they had there. And until the defense could continue to question him about this, he had to go read up on the federal and state laws about this secret recording that he did. So he's stepped down for the moment, and he will be back. However, today we hear from two different witnesses. One of them is Angelia Rickels, and the other one is Sarilda Routier, who happens to be Darin's mother. Now, a little bit of confusion on this because the actual trial transcripts say this is the testimony of Mary Rickels. However, in a brief read-through of the testimony, her name is Angelia. So I don't quite know where the name Mary comes in. Perhaps I'll find this out. But it doesn't seem to pop up here in the transcript itself, except for the title. So that, if you're a little confused about that, join the club. So am I. Not quite sure where they come in. But nonetheless, let's begin with her testimony. And the direct examination is being done by Mr. Douglas Mulder. Miss Rickels, would you tell the jury your name again, please? Angelia Rickels. Okay. Can y'all hear her all right? I will stand back here so that you can keep your voice up. If you will just speak up so that we can hear you back here in this part of the area. Would you tell the jury where you live? I live in Rowlett. And how long have you lived there? Oh, for over 2 years now. Are you a married lady? Yes, I am. Do you have a family? Oh, yes. What does your family consist of? Please, ma'am. I have 3 teenagers and 1 baby. Well, he's 15 months now. Okay. And when was your baby born? October 6th, 1995. Okay. Can you let me show you what has been marked for identification and record purposes as State's Exhibit 6B. And I'll ask you, if you see on State's Exhibit B, 6B, the city of Rowlett, Texas. Do I see it? Yes. Yes. Okay. And where do you live in Rowlett? I live on Miami Drive. Okay. It's in the Rockwall County side of Rowlett. Is it close to Del Rock Road? We are just east of it. All right. And do you see on this exhibit Del Rock Road across here? Yes, I do. Okay. About how far off? Del Rock Road is this blue dotted line across here, is it not? That is true. Okay. Can y'all see that? How far off Del Rock Road do you live? What I call city blocks, it's 2 city blocks. Mm-hmm. And you live on Miami Street, is that right? That's correct. And do you live in kind of a curve in the road? Yes, I do. Could you find that, do you think, on State's Exhibit number, is that Miami Road right there, right at the end of that yellow spot? Yes, that is. All right. And do you live right where Miami curves? Right before it hits Willowbrook. Okay. Can y'all see that kind of by that yellow mark? Yes. And would you say it would be about 2 blocks off of Del Rock Road, 2 city blocks? Yes, sir. Okay. All right. You are right there on the curve. Our house faces right on the curve or the cul-de-sac, whichever you want to call it. Okay. What sort of work was your husband doing back in June of 1996? He works for TCI Cable as a line tech. Okay. And at that time, he was working at nights. Okay. And when was your baby born? October 6th, 1995. Okay. So your baby at that time would have been what, approximately 9 months old or thereabouts? Oh, pretty close to it. Okay. Are you a nurse? I'm a registered nurse. Okay. And after the child was born, did you experience some medical difficulty? I had a stroke. Okay. And are you still recovering? Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Now, Miss Rickels, did your husband, what hours did he work back in June of 1996? He worked from 11 o'clock at night until 7:30 in the morning. Okay. But he is always one of those that gets there way ahead of time before he had to be there. So he would leave the house between 9:30 at night and 10 o'clock to be there in plenty of time. And then usually he wouldn't come home the next morning until almost 9:30 or 10 o'clock. Okay. Would he have occasion to check on you from time to time because of your medical health, ma'am? Yeah, he was always coming by. And would he, from time to time, come home for, I guess it would be lunch for him if he came by early in the morning, wouldn't he? Yes, he would. Okay. I want to direct your attention in time to the early morning of June the 6th of 1996. And I'll ask you if you had occasion to be watching TV early that morning. I was watching TV about 1:30 in the morning. Yes. Okay. Did anything of an unusual nature happen? Somebody was at the door. And at first, my first thought was that it was my husband coming in because we have a deadbolt that you have to kind of wiggle the door, in a certain way to get the key to unlock it. So when I first started hearing it wiggling, I thought it was him. But then when I heard the wood split, and they just kept continuing on, wiggling this door and was hitting on the door, then I heard the wood split, a loud cracking noise. So I finally ran to the door to see what was going on. Okay. And what did you find when you got to the door? Well, I turned the porch light on because I was thinking, everybody says turn the lights on and then they will know you are home and then they will go away. So then I looked through the peephole and there was two men standing out there. Okay, what did they look like? One was about your size, but a little stockier. Okay. He had like a knit cap on, kind of rolled up around the edges, and there was some blonde hair sticking out. And the other guy was tall and thin. Do you recall what color this was, like a toboggan or a stocking cap? Well, it was dark and he had like a jogging suit on. What color was the jogging suit? It was also dark colored. Okay. Did you get a good look at them? Had you ever seen them before? Did you recognize them? I didn't look at their faces, to be honest. No, because I was so scared at the time. What happened when you turned the lights on? They ran off. Okay. Towards Willowbrook, which would have been northwest from our house. Okay. What happened next? Well, I was thinking, it's okay. Everything is over. And I just went back to watching TV. And I started hearing somebody at the bedroom window, which was right off the living room where I was watching TV. And somebody, it sounded like something tapping on the window in that bedroom. And so I went in there to look out the bedroom, to the window to see what was going on. And our house is wired strange, where the bedroom light switch controls the studio lights in the living room. So of course that light was on. And anyway, I went to the window, looked through the blinds. What did you see? I saw them there. And there was some sort of metal object. I don't know if it was a knife or a screwdriver. They were trying to get up at the lock, those wing type locks. You can hit those a certain way and you can flip them open and unlock it. Okay. And then when I, turned off the bedroom lights, again, they left. Did they ever come back? Not that night. No. Okay. But I stayed up all night then. I kept watching all of the windows. I was so scared. Did you tell your husband about it? Oh, yeah. Did you tell your in-laws about it? Oh, yes. My in-laws and my mother. Okay, everybody. Of course, you heard that morning about the problem with the children, the Routier children being stabbed to death? Yes, I did. Okay. And did you call the police? That night, no, I didn't. Okay. And you didn't call the police for several days, did you? It was after you talked to your in laws and one thing another? That is true. Okay. All right. Did the police come out and talk to you? Yes. Okay. Did they seem interested in what happened to you? Not at all. Okay. You met me. You have seen me twice, haven't you? Yes, sir. You saw me back in November? Yes, sir. And I told you that I had just gotten your name from the state the day before, didn't I? Yes, sir. Okay. And you told me that, I don't see it here, Mr. Basillo with the district attorney's office had been out. And I told you that I got your name from them, and I got your name the day before, and I came out as quickly as I could. And you told me that Mr. Basillo had been out there the day before, didn't you? Yes, sir. With the district attorney's office? He had a lady with him, and I don't see her, but a blonde-haired or gray-haired lady was with him. A small, petite, frosted-haired woman. Okay. And he told you not to talk to anybody, didn't he? Well, they told me there would be a lot of people coming around and it would just be best to not speak to anyone. Okay. And I talked to you again last night, didn't I? Yes, sir. I talked to you briefly at your hotel. Yes, sir. Is that right? Yes, sir. And your husband stepped out and I had a lady with me when I came in there, didn't I? Mm-hmm. Yes, you did. And it was just the three of us. And your husband just stepped out in the parking lot while we visited. And you basically told me this same thing, didn't you? Yes, sir. Okay. And then I believe Mr. Basillo and the lady that was always with Mr. Basillo and Mr. Davis, I guess, came over and met with you after I did. We went to their hotel last evening. Yes. Okay. And you talked to them, I guess, after I left. Is that right? Yes, sir. And you told them basically the same thing, I suspect? Mm-hmm. The court says, is that a yes, ma'am? The witness says, yes, it is. The court says, okay, you need to speak up. We can't take head nods. The witness says, oh, okay, you can't take head nods? Okay. The court says, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Mulder then continues. This is the first time you have testified in court, isn't it? Yes, it is. Okay. Mr. Mulder says, I'll pass the witness. Now, either Mr. Shook or Mr. Davis will ask you some questions. And the witness says, okay. And the cross-examination is done by Mr. Toby Shook. Miss Rickels, do you remember me? We talked last night. Yes, I do. I'm Toby Shook, and you have talked to Investigator Basillo several times, I believe, haven't you? Yes, sir. Usually out at your house or on the phone? On the phone, usually. Okay. Now, back in when this happened, you were there at, who else was there at the house with you back in June? My oldest daughter. Okay. How old is she? She was 15 then. Okay. And I believe your baby and your other daughter were at their grandmother's house. Is that right? That's correct. Okay. And your husband, he was out working. And so you were just watching, what kind of movie was it? It was a scary movie. I can't tell you the title of it right now. Horror movie of some sort? Oh, yeah. I'm a big horror movie freak. Okay. And I remember you told me it was pretty scary, wasn't it? No, sure. I'm sure it probably was. Okay. And then you heard this noise at your door, your front door. Is that right? Yes, sir. Okay. And y'all had a lock that is kind of a trick sometimes to get open? Yes, sir. And was it more of a rattle, kind of rattling at the door, or how would you best describe it? A jiggle. A jiggle? A jiggle. Okay. And I think we talked last night, Your Honor, and if I might just open the door here for a second, and I don't know if this will make the noise or not, but was it kind of like that? And the counsel then bangs on the door. A whole lot louder. Okay. And the counsel then bangs on the door again. Like that? Mm-hmm. And the witness nods. Louder than that? Even still louder. Yes. Okay. And that obviously got your attention, didn't it? Oh, yes. Okay. And how long did that go on? Several minutes when I finally was realizing that it was not Don, my husband, using the key to come in. And then when I heard that wood crack, that went on for a long time, didn't it? Well, I wasn't timing it. Sure, it was several minutes. Several minutes. That louder than that. And at first, you thought that might be your husband, right? Yes, I did. Okay. So then after that went on, and did it stop or was it pretty steady for several minutes? It was steady. Okay. So it was that noise that I was making a little bit louder for several minutes then. Yes, sir. That is when you decided that you better go and see what was going on at the front door? Yes, sir. Because you also heard a crack of some sort. Is that right? Yes, sir. And then you turn on the light and you looked out the peephole. Yes, sir. And there was two men out there. Is that right? That's correct. One was a big stocky guy. Yes. With some type of knit cap on. Yes. And you saw blonde hair sticking out. Is that right? That's correct. And he had on what you called a jogging suit. Is that right? Yes. And it was long sleeved. Is that right? Yes, it was. Was it long pants also? Yes, it was. And the other guy was taller and thinner. Yes, sir. And he had on, do you remember what kind of hat he had on? A cowboy hat on. Okay. He had on a cowboy hat. Do you remember what color the cowboy hat was? Dark. Okay. So he had on a cowboy hat. Did he have on some type of Western shirt? Yes, sir. Okay. And blue jeans. And blue jeans. Was it a long-sleeved Western shirt? Yes, it was. So one had on kind of a jogging suit with long sleeves, and the other one had on a cowboy hat and a long-sleeved Western shirt and blue jeans? Yes, sir. Okay. And then once you turned the light on, they ran off? Yes, sir. And did you see any car out there also? Yes, I did. Where was that car? Right in front of our house, sir. In a cul-de-sac. You can't really park right in front. It was kind of half in front of mine and half in front of my neighbors to the left of me. Okay. Had you seen that car before at all? No, because that was the reason why I looked out the window to see if there was any weird cars out there and make a note if I saw anybody strange in the neighborhood. When you looked out through the peephole or through the window later on? Yes, sir. Okay. And these guys, they didn't run to that car, did they? No, sir. They went the opposite direction of it. Now, after they ran off from the door, you didn't call the police then, did you? No, sir. Okay. Did you go back and start watching the horror movie again? Yes, I did, and calming my daughter down. She was kind of scared too? Oh, she was petrified. Okay. Along with me. And then, do you know how long it was before you heard the tapping noise again, or this tapping on the window? I think 15 or 20 minutes, somewhere around in there. Was the horror movie still going on? Yeah, it was still going on. Okay. And then the window they were at, is that your daughter's window? My second daughter's, yes. Okay. And did you go in the room and look out the window at that time? Yes, I did. And was it these same two men outside the window at that time? Yes, I think it was. Okay. What do you mean you think it was? Do you think it might have been two different men? Well, if they were to stand here in front of me and I had to personally identify them, I don't think I could, Did they look like, but they were the same, had the same outfits on, dressed the same way? Yes, and the same builds. So the guy with blonde hair, and the toboggan and long sleeve jogging shirt, and the guy with the cowboy hat and tall and skinny, tall and slim. Yes. Did you open the window and look? I mean, did they see you looking at them? No, I don't think they did. How long were they out there? How long were you watching them at the window? Maybe a minute or two? Okay. So maybe a couple of minutes, and one of them was jiggling with the window? Yes, sir. And what happened then after they were there for a minute or two? When I turned the bedroom light on, all the noise stopped, and I went back again and looked out the window and they were gone. Did you see where they went to? They went the same direction when they left from the front door, northwest of the house. And did you see that car out there? Is that when you saw the car out there? I saw the car out there about 10 minutes after that. Yes. Okay. So about what time was that? A little after 2 o'clock, 2:08, or somewhere around in there. So sometime after 2 o'clock. Yes, sir. Were you looking at a clock at all at that time? Yes. No. Okay. And again, what did this car look like? It was a dark blue, small, boxy type car. I'm not good with types of cars. Okay. And you didn't go to sleep again that night? No, I stayed up all night. After you saw the men at your daughter's window, did you call the police then? No, sir. Okay. Did you see that car again in the morning after it was light? Since I stayed up all night, I kept watching all of the windows and the car was there at 3 o'clock. And then again, it was still there at 7:30. So it was still outside. It was still in the exact same spot where I had seen it. Okay. And then your husband came home. Is that right? That's correct. And you told him about what had happened? Oh, yeah. And y'all still didn't call the police, did you? No, not at that time? Well, at that time, I was thinking it's all over. What can they do now? Okay. And had you had any incidents like this happen before this? Where not at that house? No. At another house, had you? Yes. Which house was that? Back when I was in college, in the dinosaur days, as my girls would say. Okay. Since that time, at the house you live in on Miami, you have had another incident where you thought some people were coming up to your house, haven't you? After this? Yes, after this in June. Yes, okay. When was that? It was in November. What happened on that occasion? I'm a smoker and I go outside in the garage to smoke. And the door was only lifted maybe a foot, if that much. And I heard shuffling of footprints or footsteps or whatever on the driveway out there. And I got scared. And I wasn't about to bend over and look out there and see who it was then. I was just scared. So I just pulled the door down and stuck a stick in the door so they couldn't lift it. Well, what time of day was that? It was in the middle of the night, kind of about the same time that this happened in June. Oh, more like 2:30 or 3 o'clock. Okay. Did you call the police on that occasion? I did the next morning. Okay. And did they come out and talk to you about that? Yes, he did. And I guess it was about the 11th that you called the police back in June, right? On June the 11th? That's correct. 5 days after this had happened? That's correct. And did the uniformed officer come out and talk to you? Yes. Okay. Did you tell him what you had seen that night? Yes, did. Okay. And did the police come out again soon after that when you saw that car again? Well, again in August, I saw that car pull out there, and what triggered my memory was that the person that got out of the car was the same build as the stocky guy that I had seen before. And so I ran in and called the police and they came over then. Did you point the car out to them? Yes, I did. Okay. And what did the police do then? They went to the house where I pointed to that showed where the guy went to. Was that a neighbor of yours? Yes. And did they bring any of them out of the house? They brought a small, skinny person out in handcuffs. Did that look like one of the guys that had been there? No, he was shorter than the one that I had seen on June 6th. That was a different guy altogether? Well, based on height, yes. Had you seen that car around there any more after that? No. Okay. Now, back when this happened on June the 6th, you had had some bad health problems that year, hadn't you? Oh, yes. You had this stroke and you have had some other health problems, haven't you? Well, yes, I had 3 heart attacks that year too. What heart attacks did you have that year? When did you have those heart attacks? At the end of June that year. Okay. And then 14 days after that. It was about the second week or so of July, and then another one in August. Okay. Pretty much one after another, it seemed like. Okay. And you buried your brother, I think just 3 days before this incident. Is that right? That's right. On June 3rd, I buried my baby brother. And you were pretty close to him, weren't you? Very close. Okay. And that had upset you quite a bit, hadn't it? Yes. Okay. And were you on any medication at the time this happened from your stroke? Blood thinners? Numerous. I had to take quite a bit of medicine. What all types of medication did you take? Well, an antidepressant, and then, of course, blood thinners. And there were some cardiac meds that I had to take. And that was, when I say numerous, I'm thinking numerous in dollar value. It was about 1,600 a month. A whole lot of medication, a lot of money for it. Yeah. What type of antidepressants were you taking? Trazodone. Okay. The court then says, could you spell that for me, please, ma'am, if you know how? The witness then says, Trazadone. The court says, okay. Mr. Shook says, I believe that's all we have, Judge. Mr. Mulder says, we have nothing further. And the court says, may this witness be excused, gentlemen. Mr. Mulder says, yes, sir. The court says, all right, be careful stepping down. And then the court says, all right, your next witness. And the next witness on the stand is Sarilda Routier, and the direct examination is begun by Mr. Douglas Mulder. Are you Sarilda Routier? Yes, sir. And would you tell the jury where you live, please? I live in Lubbock, Texas, at 5104 9th in Lubbock. Okay. And have you lived there a good part of your adult life? I have lived there all of my life except 2 years when my husband was in the service. When was that? We got married in 64. We lived in Dallas from 1964 to 1968. Then we moved to Lubbock. Okay. Do you have children? Yes, sir. How many children do you have? I have 3 children. I have Darin. He is my oldest. He is 29. Dion, who is 27, and Arenda, who is 21. Okay. Are your children married? All of them are married now. Okay. And where do they live? Darin lives in Rowlett, and Dion, he has been going to college all this time. He has just recently moved to Plano, Texas, which is in the Dallas area, and Arenda lives in Lubbock. Okay. What business are you and your husband in? We own a machine shop. It is called R&R Repair and Machine. Okay. We have had it for 26 years. Is it basically your husband operates it? Does he? Yes, we started the business. It was because my maiden name was Raper, Raper, and it was Raper and Routier, initials R and R. My father died in 1987, so we're sole proprietors now. We were a partnership. You have been called here to testify as regards to Darlie Routier. How long have you known Darlie? They have been married 8 years. I have known her 10 or 11 years. To tell you the truth, I can't tell you exactly, but a long time. Do you know her well? Well, how many grandchildren do you have? Well, I had 4. Okay. I have 2 other grandsons. Okay. And what are their ages? Well, we had Devin, who wanted to be considered 7, and Damon, who was 5, and Drake. Dion and Dana have a little boy named Dylan. Dylan will be 3. He is 2.5. And I have Drake, who is about 15 or 16 months old. All right. So you have 2 surviving grandchildren? 2 surviving. And 1 grandchild by your son, Darin. Yes. And 1 by Dion. And 1 by Dion? Yes. What was your relationship, Miss Routier, with your grandchildren? Did you see them often? I saw them often, as much as you can with them living in Dallas. You know, when you live, Lubbock is 350 miles, okay? But I did get to see them often. They came to us. We never were away from each other on the holidays, and so either they came to us or I came to them. I also do a lot of shopping at market, and so I came with girlfriends for sometimes day trips or 2 night trips. Plus, I was always there when the babies were born. Darlie and I do lots of shopping. She is truthfully my daughter-in-law. She is really a girlfriend of mine. We're real friends. So I spent a lot of time in their home. Would you talk to your daughter-in-law and your son and your grandchildren on the phone frequently? Oh, yes. We have 10 cents a minute. And to be truthful with you, we were talking more and enjoying it lots. I talk to Darlie an hour or 2 a week and Darin. Sometimes they would say, one saying that I was doing all of the talking to one, and then they would talk, and then sometimes I would speak to both of them in the same day. I hardly went a week that I didn't talk to them on the phone. Do you feel like you know your daughter-in-law well? I most certainly do. Can you tell the jury what type of mother she was to your grandchildren? Darlie is the daughter-in-law that everyone would love to have. Okay? You should all get to have her. In my opinion, what do you want from a daughter-in-law? You want somebody who loves your son, who lets your son love you back, and that loves you, that gives you beautiful grandkids and teaches them to love you. What do you want out of life? She was never jealous. Darin and I are very, very close. Darin is a very loving person. He is very affectionate. He shews his affection. He kisses me on lips. Dion doesn't do that. Dion loves me, but they are two different personalities, and she allowed it. And I appreciate that. I have seen that in my friends who didn't have that. I have friends who have daughter-in-laws that are jealous of the relationship. She was never jealous of our relationship. Well, she loved me too. Why would she be in any way jealous of Darin's relationship when she felt the same way? Okay, she has been described as selfish and materialistic, self-centered. Do you agree with that? I most certainly do not. Materialistic? Well, materialistic can mean different things to different people. Darlie likes nice things. I like nice things. Do you know anybody who doesn't? Well, I don't know. We like nice things, but we buy it on sale. Okay. Well, it's the truth. Okay. Well, as far as materialistic, Darlie liked nice things and Darin liked nice things, and they bought it honestly with their own money. I don't see anything wrong with that. They worked hard, didn't they? They worked hard. They had lots of guts, and they are successful because of his guts. Darin is really a mixture of me and Daddy, of his father. He is not quite as boisterous, maybe, as I, but he is not as quiet and reserved as his father. He is a wonderful mix, and he has turned out awesome. He found a wonderful mate, and together they have worked hard and made every dime of that money themselves. Did they take good care of your grandbabies? Well, Darlie is not going to deny them anything. She is going to, if she has $1 in her pocket and they wanted a candy bar, well, no, Grandmommy thought, well, they really didn't need that, but Darlie just couldn't deny them anything. And that is the truth. Tell the jury what those grandchildren meant to you. Well, I'm sure everybody has grandkids. I hope that they do. Okay. Your first grandchild is very important. Not that those others aren't, but Devin looks just like Darin. He has freckles, which I hated my freckles. I didn't particularly care for his either, but it was like a little Darin. Grandbabies, if you don't have a grandbaby, grandbabies are something that you didn't give birth to, but you have got that wonderful feeling. It's really neat. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. I don't have them anymore, and I have not really come to terms with that. I put it somewhere because when you do really think about that, we don't have Devin and Damon anymore. It is so unbearable that I start to throw up. So you have to just put it somewhere. And our main emphasis right now is getting Darlie home and getting this mess straightened out. This awful mess. Did you see her at the hospital? I sure did. Did you think her grief was appropriate? I would be ashamed if I was anybody to say that wasn't appropriate. I don't know where people, number one, I am offended by anybody saying that it was not there. But if you saw it, and we're not talking about a choice here of somebody saying what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. It sounds to me like, from reading the papers, they are saying that it was inappropriate. I was there, and it was appropriate at every step. Ask me. What times are we talking about? Every time it was appropriate. I have thought back over this. This is my grandbabies. I have another grandbaby. I have Drake. I, in no way, shape, form, or fashion, intend to have Drake put in any kind of jeopardy. Okay? I've seen all this. From what bits and pieces I got from frantic friends and neighbors, I guess you could say that is how I have gotten my information. Have you read the newspapers and kept up with well, Lubbock has been very kind toward me. This is Darin and Darlie's home, and they have kind of considered that trash, and they have repeated very little, very little. So I got the Dallas Morning News, and I have heard that it was on the front page, and this and that. Mr. Greg Davis says, I'm sorry, I will object to this. This is extraneous. The court says, sustain the objection. Ma'am, just testify, just listen to the question. Mr. Mulder says, have you kept up with, are you aware of the evidence in this case? Yes, I am. I am aware of everything that I know of anyway. Do you believe that Darlie killed her sons? Mr. Greg Davis says, I'll object to that. It's not relevant. The court says, sustained. Let's move on. Mr. Mulder says, do you know who killed your grandchildren? I have no idea. Would you be here if you had any doubt in her whatsoever? I would not. Mr. Greg Davis says, we would object to that again and ask that the court instruct the jury to disregard that last comment. The court says the jury is instructed to disregard the last comment. Mr. Mulder says, is she capable of all of this? Mr. Greg Davis says, I object again. The court says, all right, gentlemen, let's ask her the right questions. Ma'am, just listen to the questions and answer it as briefly and to the point as you can, please. The witness says, okay. What was the question again? I only heard the objection. Mr. Mulder says, I asked you if she was capable of this. And Mr. Greg Davis says, and to that I do object. The court says, sustained. Let's move on. Next question. Mr. Mulder says, we will pass the witness. They have some questions for you. And Mr. Greg Davis then says, Miss Routier, I'm sorry that you had to come down here. I know that you loved your 2 grandchildren, and I certainly have no questions for you. Thank you. The court says, thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Let's watch your step going off of there. And at this point, the testimony of Sarilda Routier in the jury case is concluded. All right, so let's recap what we heard in this episode. I know it seemed a little bit shorter than the others, and we had 2 witnesses. The first was Angelia Rickels. She actually lived a half a mile from Darlie. And on the same day, June 6, 1996, she was at home watching television at around 1:30 in the morning and heard someone attempting to break into her home through the front door. Now, at first, she wasn't concerned because when she heard the door handle rattle, because often her husband would come home to check on her. He worked overnight, and she actually, after having her last child, had ended up having a stroke. And so he would often come home from work and check on her overnight. This rattling noise became wood cracking and then banging. She did not have her porch light on, and so she went over and she turned it on and then looked outside where she saw 2 men. Now, one of the men, she said, was about the same size as the attorney, Mr. Mulder, but stockier. And another was a taller, skinnier man. Now, the stocky man had on a dark-colored jogging suit and a black stocking cap, and he had some blonde hair sticking out of it. When she did turn on the porch lights, they ran off. She then went back to watching television, where she heard something coming from a bedroom just off of the living room, and she went in there and kind of peeked through the blinds, and the 2 men were there, the same 2 men, and they had something in their hands. She wasn't sure what it was, but it looked like they were trying to get into and hit inside the lock on the window to get it to move over so that they could get it open. When she turned on the lights in this bedroom, they again ran away. She did not, however, contact the police for several days. She actually didn't contact the police until June 11th. When she did, she said an officer was sent to her home, and she was asked if the officer seemed interested in what happened to her, and she responded with, not at all. Now, Angelia, she had first met with the defense attorney, Mr. Mulder, in November when he got her name from the state. So Mr. Basillo, the investigator for the state, had already been out there to talk with Angelia and had come out with a female that he had brought with her. She tried to describe, brought with him, excuse me. She had tried to describe her. But Basillo had told her, Angelia, that a lot of people would be coming around to talk to her. and that it was best if she didn't speak with them. So when the prosecutor, Mr. Davis, questions her, she gives a little bit more information. He points out that she had been watching a scary movie, which is evidently something she does all the time. Obviously, Davis wants to suggest to the jury that this noise at the door and at the window was just her overreacting because she was watching this movie. Then he has her describe the second man, and we find out that he had a cowboy hat on. The cowboy hat was dark, and he was wearing a Western shirt along with blue jeans. We also find out that the time between the men trying to get into the front door and then the bedroom window was around 15 minutes. She does mention noticing a car in front of her house, and when she looked out the bedroom window, it was a dark colored boxy type car. She also said that this car was there around 3 o'clock in the morning and had not seemed to move when she saw it again at 7:30 in the morning. So this could mean a few things. Either this is the same car that was seen in the Routier neighborhood about a half a mile away, because it is 3 o'clock in the morning and the crimes over there happened around 2:15 or so in the morning. I mean, and I'm guesstimating here because we know that the 911 call came in around 2:30 in the morning, but not quite sure if the car had been there the entire time or, if she had just noticed it there at 3 o'clock in the morning for the first time. In November of that same year, she had been out in the garage smoking around 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and she heard footsteps outside the garage and didn't want to look at who it might be. She didn't want to peek underneath the garage. So she put a stick in the door so that they couldn't lift it, whoever they were. She did call the police the following morning about this incident. Now, in August, she noticed this same car out in front of her house and happened to see a guy get out that looked similar to the stocky guy that she had seen in June. So she called the police. Now, evidently, this guy had gone into a house near hers, and eventually the police did go to this house and ended up coming out with someone in handcuffs, but it was a smaller, thinner guy. She didn't believe that it was the same tall or the same skinny guy that was at her house on June the 6th. Davis then brings up the fact that she had to bury her younger brother 3 days before June the 6th, before this incident. I'm not sure why that's relevant, but he brings it up. Davis then has her talk about her health and her heart attacks and her medication. However, the heart attacks that she described having began in late June. This is well after her incident of somebody trying to break into her house, as well as after the Routier crime. But Greg Davis wants it known just exactly how many medications she's taking. Sarilda then gets on the stand, and this is obviously the mother of Darin, and she talks about her and Darlie's relationship and makes it a point that her and Darlie were very close. They would go out shopping together and often spend time talking on the phone every week. She also mentioned how her and her oldest son, which was Darin, were also very close, and that Darlie was never jealous of that relationship. When she was asked about the things that Darlie would purchase, Sarilda mentions that they would purchase things on sale, and that yes, they liked nice things, but they also made their own money and worked hard for it, and they should get to enjoy what they have worked so hard at. Sarilda is asked if Sarilda, would even come to court to testify if she believed that it was Darlie that had committed this crime. And she said, absolutely not. Now, the prosecution objects to this, and the judge sustains it and tells the jury to disregard that last comment, which, they may or may not have, but nonetheless, that's where we're at right now. So in the next episode, we hear from Darin Routier, and his testimony will run over at least 2 episodes. And then we begin with the rest of the testimony of Detective Patterson after we conclude Darin's testimony. Thank you. Thank you all for listening. You are all so appreciated. If you enjoy this podcast and want to support it, consider donating through the link below in the show notes. Your contributions help improve this content, cover production costs, and bring you even more stories. So thank you for being an amazing part of this community, and I'll be back soon with the testimony of Darlie Routier. Bye for now.